I can hear him saying, my memorial, it's a tribute to me and it's on your fucking phone. That's the thing about Lanford, is you can still hear him. You really can, and that's the beauty of theater and all the audiences and all the directors and actors. They're all going to get to hear him again and again. Lanford loved words. He wrote in a way that showed us who we are, why we are, and what we've become, whether we like it or not. He let no one off the hook, not his actors, not his audience, not his critics, not the American theater, not the country, nor himself, especially himself. He demanded excellence, hated hypocrisy, despised mediocrity, and loved life. Along with Marshall and everyone else at Circle Rep, he was, for me, an artistic mentor and a lifelong source of inspiration. A devout playwright, Lanford was incapable of selling out. No matter how broke he was, he refused to write anything other than his plays his way. I'd tell him, get your agent to get you a gig doctoring a film script. It's easy. And he'd look at me and all but spit. Movies are bupkis. And yet when I did a film he liked, and thankfully there were a few, he went out of his way to tell me. He adored work that mattered, that meant something, that counted. In his world, that wasn't too much to ask. His wit was legendary. In the late 70s, Danton Stone, John Hogan, and I wrote a play about a down-and-out talent agent and a young lounge singer interested in making the career transition from Left Rack City to Manhattan. Beyond desperate, they hit the road and tour the country, hoping to become so successful, they're asked to dine with Wayne Newton. That was our climax. The title of our maiden epic was 42 Cities in 40 Nights. After months of dogged persistence, Marshall finally gave up and gave in and allowed us a reading in front of the rest of the company. Blinded by our own brilliance. Our dirge of a comedy lasted 3 hours. After the reading, everyone scattered for a much-needed break. Dreaming of Broadway, I found my way to the restroom, and standing at a urinal was Lanford. I slid in beside him. What'd you think? I said. Without looking at me, he said, I'll give you $100 for the jokes. I met him in 1976 in the Greenwich Village offices of Circle Rep. He was disheveled, splayed out in a chair. There was a quick introduction. Jeff, you know Lanford, don't you? And I responded by staring. I'd never seen a living, breathing playwright before. Hey, Dal, how are you? He said. And from somewhere, someone said he was working on a new play. And I asked him how it was going. He just looked at me and said, I have no idea. For the rest of my time at Circle Rep, I made it my mission to study how he did it, the endless rewrites, the painful readings of the first drafts, with his last-minute scribbled cuts and additions and the margins, the misspellings, the scenes that didn't end so much as just simply stopped. He even used the actors' own names instead of naming his characters. He wrote from the ground up, searching without direction, chasing his words. Typically, we would finish a first draft reading and, like actors do, whisper to each other, where's the play? Is this a play? I don't think this is a play. Marshall would go off with Lanford. Weeks later, the second draft would come in, somehow, sort of. There seemed to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. More concerned, Marshall would go off with Lanford again another month. Circle Rep would announce with great fanfare a new play by Lanford Wilson coming this spring. And we're like, what? There's no second act. Everybody in the company knows there's no second act. So rehearsals were scheduled, and in we came, getting our scripts handed to us at the last possible minute, and in front of an audience of finger-crossing Circle Reppers, we would open to the title page, and there it was, a new play by Lanford Wilson. Somehow, he had done it again. And not just done it, but done something that mattered, that meant something, that counted. In 1978, Circle Rep premiered 5th of July. Danny Stone, Bill Hurt, John Hogan, and I shared an off-Broadway dressing room, which was closer to a closet. Hogan and I fancied ourselves as budding songwriters, and after the play was up and running, Hogan and I would bring our guitars, and in between shows, we would play each other and whoever wanted to listen our newest creations. They weren't bad, they weren't necessarily good, but they weren't they weren't that. It was filled with youthful passion and a determination to kind of mine the music in our souls. One day we looked up and there was Lanford leaning in the doorway. He goes, "You guys write songs?" And we said, "Yeah, we do." And he goes, "Let me help." From behind his back, he handed both of us a piece of paper. Lyrics. Poems, really. "I don't know if these are songs," he said, "but see what you can do with them." Hogan went to work on a song like Stardust, about a very late night in a bar and those who have nowhere else to be. Lanford gave me an anthem about a bus ride from Missouri to Chicago. Lanford hated flying. Like Marshall said, he preferred to travel via Amtrak and Greyhound. A song called Road Signs he painted in America only he could see. 2 days before he died, John Hogan, Stephanie Gordon, and I traveled out to New Jersey to visit him. Tanya was there. She brought us into the room. He was near the end, barely responsive. We surrounded his bed, and then there, 33 years later, after he handed us those 2 pieces of paper, we picked up our guitars and played his songs for him. His head never moved, his eyes never opened. We could only hope he heard us. After the songs were over, we talked to each other about his incredible career, about working with him in this play or that play, as if we were all back in the village, winding down at the Lion's Head. And before we left, Hogan and I played him one more song. It was Stevie Goodman's famous train song, "City of New Orleans." It's one of Lanford's favorites, and it was the tune that inspired him to write Hot O Baltimore. We reprised the final chorus over and over and over, turning it into the longest version of the song ever sung, not wanting it to end, not wanting it to ever end. Finally finished, Tanya leaned into Lanford's ear and whispered, "Did you like that, Lanford?" And he nodded. We're going to do that for you. Now, Lanford couldn't sing a lick, but that didn't stop him. So if you're so inclined, join in. Riding on the city of New Orleans, Illinois Central, Monday morning rail. 15 cars, 15 restless riders, 3 conductors, 25 sacks of mail. Out on the southbound Odyssey, train pulls out of Kankakee, rolls along past houses, farms, and fields, passing trains that have no name in the freight yards with them old black men in the graveyards and rusted automobiles. Good morning, America, how are you? Said, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I've been running 500 miles and the day is done. Dealing card games with the old man in the club car. Penny a point, ain't no one keeping score. Pass the paper bag that holds the bottle. Feel the wheels rumble beneath the floor. And the sons of Pullman porters and the sons of engineers ride their daddy's magic car made of steam. And the mothers with their babes asleep, marching to that gentle beat in a rhythm of the rails all they dream. Good morning, America, how are you? Said, don't you know me? I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I've been gone 500 miles and the day is done. Night Nighttime on the city of New Orleans, changing cars in Memphis, Tennessee. Halfway home, we'll be there by morning, through the Mississippi darkness, rolling down to the sea. All the towns of people seem to fade into bad dreams, and the steel rail still ain't heard the news. The conductor sings his song again, and the passengers will please refrain. This train's got to disappear in real cool. Good night, America, how are you? Said, don't you know me, I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I've been gone 500 miles and the day is done. Good night, America, how are you? Said, don't you know me, I'm your native son. I'm the train they call the city of New Orleans. I'll be gone 500 miles and the day is done. I'll be gone 500 miles and the day is done. I'll be gone 500 miles and the day is done.
Shut up, Farrell.